Fed Chairman Jerome Powell spoke earlier this morning about climate change, but he's walking a real thin line, saying on one hand that the impact of climate change will be far-reaching, but he's also cautioning that the Fed is going to try to stay in its lane. Take a listen from this morning.
But we are not, and we do not seek to be, climate policymakers as such. We have a very specific mandate and precious independence, and which we think serves the public well, has served the public well, and I think we should avoid trying to fill in public policy where governments haven't done so yet. That's not up to us. But nonetheless, I do think our work can indirectly help educate the public on what's going on, and also I would think inform other parts of the government in the actions that they are assigned to assess.
You can kind of hear the Fed chairman there being very careful and deliberate about the words that he's using. And that's because of the political tightrope around what the Fed is trying to explore right now. They're trying to look at the idea of climate scenario analysis, where they add to their bank supervisory and regulatory framework considerations to how climate change could affect any sort of financial risk. Now, they haven't done anything yet. The Fed chairman says there's no announcement yet about whether or not they'll ultimately incorporate that, but it's still very much a politically touchy topic, with some Republicans on Capitol Hill saying this is not something that the Federal Reserve has in its mandate, Kristen.
I'm curious to know, Brian, how you think, Jay Powell is going to walk that line. Just in that clip there, we did see, of course, the European Central Bank's Christine Lagarde present, and she had made comments that were far more forceful. So how is Powell going to walk that line between not creating policy, but still taking into account the very real financial risks that climate change does pose, not just to our markets, but to global markets?
Yeah, I mean, you take a look at Christine Lagarde's remarks, very different from the clip that we just played you. The language that she used was that if central bankers were to turn away from the responsibilities on climate change, they'll be, quote, failing on our mandate and would be, quote, missing in action. Completely different, with a much different type of gusto than what we heard from the Fed chairman. And this is challenging because central banks around the world are trying to figure out to what degree they should be paying mind to this, as governments also at the G20 coming up will have a big discussion on the role of climate change as well. So a lot of very interesting topics to watch as these central bankers continue to try to build in any sort of climate risk into their macroprudential tools.